The sun rose slowly over the dusty fields of Kijiji, painting the thatched roofs of the small homesteads with gold. Roosters crowed in the distance, and the river gurgled past the edge of the village. Mariam had already been awake for hours. She moved silently through the compound, careful not to wake her mother, who still slept on the woven mat inside their hut. Mariam had grown used to the quiet mornings since her father disappeared years ago. Her mother, Amina, worked tirelessly in the fields, tending to the crops and animals, never showing the exhaustion that Mariam felt in her own bones. Life was simple and hard in Kijiji, but it was predictable and safe. Mariam carried a small basket of vegetables toward the marketplace. She liked these walks early in the morning, when the air smelled of earth and smoke and the village was still slow and calm. Today, something unusual caught her eye. A line of colorful cloths and trinkets had appeared at the edge of the village. Men and women were gathering around, talking in low, excited tones. Curiosity pulled Mariam closer. There, standing among the villagers, was a man she had never seen before. His name was Teo, according to the whispers. He was tall and handsome, with a calm voice and a smile that seemed to warm the air around him. He spoke with confidence and offered goods and small treasures that the villagers had never imagined owning. Teo noticed Mariam as she approached. His eyes met hers, and he smiled in a way that made her heart flutter unexpectedly. He asked her name and where she lived. Mariam was shy at first, but found herself telling him everything. Teo listened carefully, nodding, and then offered her a small bracelet made of beads. Mariam hesitated, feeling undeserving, but he insisted, saying it would bring her luck. She wore it as she returned home, feeling a strange sense of anticipation. Over the following weeks, Teo came to Kijiji often. He visited Mariam's hut to speak with her and her mother, bringing gifts of food and small items that the villagers would admire from a distance. He helped in the fields occasionally, laughing and joking with the people as if he had always been part of their lives. Mariam found herself drawn to him. She admired his energy and the way he seemed to understand her without many words. She had never known a man like him. He asked her questions about her life, about her dreams, and listened patiently. Mariam began to confide in him about her fears and hopes, about the absence of her father, and the weight her mother carried for both of them. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Teo walked with Mariam to the river. The water glimmered and reflected the orange sky. He took her hand in his, and she did not pull away. His touch was gentle and reassuring. He spoke of a future filled with possibility, of a life beyond the confines of Kijiji. Mariam felt as though she had stepped into a dream she had longed for but never dared to imagine. That night, as she lay on her mat, she whispered to herself that she had found love at last. The days turned into weeks, and Mariam's feelings for Teo deepened. The villagers began to notice her radiant smile and the way she lingered near Teo whenever he visited. Some women whispered warnings about men who promised everything too quickly. Mariam ignored them. In her heart, she believed Teo was different. He brought a sense of joy and excitement that she had never experienced. She began to imagine their wedding, a simple celebration in the village with friends and family, a life that seemed perfect and within reach. But life has a way of twisting dreams into shadows. One afternoon, Mariam followed Teo to a meeting with other traders at the edge of the village. From a distance, she saw him speaking in hushed tones, handing over coins to men she did not know. The smiles and promises he offered her seemed absent in this place. There was a tension, a secrecy that made Mariam's stomach twist. When Teo turned to wave at her from afar, the charm returned, but Mariam could not shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in her chest. She tried to convince herself it was nothing. Perhaps he was just conducting business. Perhaps her mind was imagining things. The tension continued to build over the following weeks. Small things began to change. Teo's visits became less predictable, and his attention toward Mariam seemed distracted at times. He still smiled and gave gifts, but there were glances, half-uttered words, and subtle silences that gnawed at Mariam. One evening, she overheard him speaking to another woman outside the village. She could not hear the words clearly, but the intimacy in the tone made her heart hammer. She felt a pain she had never known. Her mind raced. Could the man who had promised her love be leading a life that did not include her? Could she have been nothing more than a passing amusement in his eyes? The realization that something was wrong sent Mariam into a sleepless night. She watched Teo from her window as he walked toward another hut, laughing with the villagers who had once admired him so much. Her heart ached, a mix of longing, confusion, and betrayal. In the morning, she confronted him. Teo's eyes softened, but there was a flicker of something Mariam could not place. He spoke carefully, explaining that he had responsibilities beyond the village, that his life was complicated, that he had connections she could never understand. Mariam wanted to believe him, but the unease had taken root deep within her. That night, as she held the small bracelet he had given her, she realized that the man who had sold her love with his charm might have also sold her to betrayal. The morning after the confrontation, Mariam could hardly face the world. Her mother noticed the shadow on her face and asked gently if something troubled her. Mariam forced a smile, saying only that she felt unwell. She could not tell her mother the truth. In Kijiji, gossip traveled faster than the river, and she feared shame more than heartbreak. Teo's betrayal was a secret that would not remain hidden for long. She spent the day in the fields pretending to work, while her mind replayed every moment with him. Each memory was a mix of sweetness and deceit. She questioned how she could have trusted him so completely. That evening, Teo arrived at the hut again. Mariam's stomach twisted with anger and longing all at once. He greeted her warmly, bringing a basket of fruit. "I missed you," he said, his voice soft. Mariam wanted to scream at him, to demand truth and honesty. Instead, she nodded politely, hiding the turmoil inside. He spoke of leaving soon for another village, of business opportunities that could bring wealth and status. He asked if she would wait for him. Mariam's eyes filled with tears, but she did not answer immediately. In her heart, she knew that waiting would only prolong the inevitable pain. The next days passed like a fever. Mariam avoided Teo as best she could, yet he found ways to appear near her, always offering kindness, always speaking of a future that seemed both impossible and necessary. The villagers noticed the tension. Some whispered about Mariam being foolish, while others tried to console her. Her friends, young women she had grown up with, urged her to open her eyes, to stop being enchanted by a man who did not deserve her trust. Mariam listened but felt trapped between what her heart wanted and what her mind knew. One afternoon, Mariam decided to follow Teo without being seen. She stayed hidden behind the banana trees as he walked toward the trading post at the far end of the village. There, she saw him exchanging goods with another woman in a way that left no doubt. He was offering promises, gifts, and affection just as he had offered her. Mariam's chest tightened with pain. She felt foolish and humiliated. The love she had poured into him had been returned with deceit. Rage and sorrow battled within her. She wanted to run, to confront him in front of everyone, to demand that he admit his betrayal. But fear held her back. Fear of scandal, fear of humiliation, fear of losing the small dignity she had left. Mariam spent that night awake, listening to the wind through the trees, thinking of her mother's sacrifices, and questioning how easily trust could be broken. She realized that love could be a currency, and Teo had sold it without care, leaving her to pay with shame and heartbreak. The next morning, she avoided the market entirely. She stayed near the hut, working quietly, her hands busy with chores while her mind was consumed with strategies. She knew she could not allow Teo to continue walking through the village unchallenged. She needed a plan, a way to reclaim her dignity and protect herself from further humiliation. Word spread quickly in Kijiji when Mariam finally confronted Teo at the trading post. She waited until the villagers had gathered, their curiosity piqued by the tension in the air. "Why have you deceived me?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tremor she felt inside. Teo looked startled but tried to maintain his charm. He smiled nervously and spoke of misunderstandings, of circumstances, of the pressures of his trade. Mariam's eyes burned with anger. She could not forgive excuses. The villagers watched in silence, some feeling sympathy, others amusement, others judgment. Mariam realized in that moment that the society around her had its own rules, rules that demanded respectability and punished gullibility. The confrontation did not bring satisfaction. Teo left quickly, avoiding further discussion. Mariam felt a bitter mix of triumph and emptiness. She had stood for herself, yet the wound of betrayal remained. Her mother embraced her that evening, saying quietly, "You are strong, Mariam. Do not let the actions of one man define who you are." Mariam clung to those words. She decided to focus on work, on helping her mother, and on rebuilding the self she had almost lost in love. Yet life has a way of challenging resolve. A week later, Mariam discovered that some villagers had spread rumors about her involvement with Teo, twisting her story into scandal. She faced whispers and pointed glances as she walked through the market. Even friends looked at her differently. Shame wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. Mariam felt anger simmering within her. How could the man who caused her pain continue to enjoy life while she suffered judgment from those who barely knew the truth? She knew that she had to act carefully. The next days would require cunning and courage to reclaim her voice and her dignity. Mariam decided to focus on the small business. Her mother ran alongside her. She spent long hours in the market, selling woven baskets, vegetables, and homemade goods. Her work began to attract attention. Customers admired her dedication and the quality of her products. Slowly, the whispers about her personal life faded as the villagers saw her resilience. Mariam found strength in creating, in providing for herself and her mother, in proving that her worth was not tied to a man's deceit. Yet, Teo's shadow lingered in her mind. She knew that the man who sold her love had left a scar that time alone could not erase. Then, one day, a trader arrived at the village bringing news from neighboring settlements. He mentioned Teo, speaking of riches, power, and manipulation. Mariam's heart sank as she realized that Teo had continued his pattern of charm and betrayal elsewhere. She felt a mix of relief and despair. Relief that she was not alone in recognizing his deceit. Despair that such men could continue to harm others without consequence. Mariam vowed silently that she would not let herself be a victim again. She would rebuild, stronger and wiser. Late that evening, as Mariam returned home, she noticed a small bundle at the entrance of her hut. Curiosity and caution battled inside her. She opened it and found a letter, folded neatly, written in Teo's familiar hand. Her hands trembled as she read the words. He spoke of regret, of longing, of a love that he claimed he could not control. Mariam felt the old ache return. Her fingers tightened around the paper. Was it sincerity or another deception? The village night pressed around her, full of the sound of insects and the river. Mariam knew that the coming days would demand not only courage, but wisdom and discernment. Mariam stared at the letter long into the night, the words blurring as her emotions swirled. She knew Teo's apologies could be lies or manipulations. The warmth she had felt for him clashed with the betrayal that still throbbed inside her. The village was quiet around her hut, but inside, her thoughts raced. She realized that forgiving him would not come easily, nor would forgetting. Yet she also knew that holding on to anger would only weigh her down. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. You are strong. Do not let one man decide your life. Those words were now a lifeline. The next day, Mariam returned to the market, ignoring the letter for the moment. She focused on her wares, greeting customers with a polite smile, masking the turmoil within. Villagers noticed her resolve. Slowly, respect replaced the whispers of gossip. Mariam's baskets and vegetables began selling faster than before. Some elders nodded in approval when they saw her determination. It became clear that her strength lay not only in her skill but also in her ability to rise above humiliation. She realized that the life she had almost lost in love could now be reclaimed in dignity and purpose. But Teo was never far from her thoughts. Each time she ventured to the trading post or walked through the paths leading to the river, she half expected to see him. The letter had awakened feelings she had tried to suppress. That evening, curiosity overcame caution. She returned to the letter and read it again. Teo wrote of regret, claiming he had been forced by circumstances to make choices he now regretted. He begged her to meet him at the old baobab tree outside the village. Mariam's heart pounded. She knew the risks. Meeting him could reopen wounds, but ignoring him could leave questions unanswered. She decided to go, determined to face him with clarity and courage. As she approached the baobab tree, Mariam saw Teo waiting, leaning casually against its trunk. His charm was present, but there was an unfamiliar tension in his posture. He smiled when he saw her, but Mariam did not return it immediately. She studied him, looking for signs of deception. "Why should I believe you?" she asked, her voice steady. Teo's gaze softened, and he spoke honestly about his past actions, about mistakes and poor choices, and about how he had failed to value her trust. Mariam listened, torn between lingering affection and hard-earned wisdom. She realized that while words could offer comfort, they could not erase actions. Teo continued to explain that he had learned from his errors, that he had seen the consequences of his betrayal, and that he wanted to make amends. Mariam felt the pull of his sincerity, but she also felt the hard edges of her own experience shaping her judgment. She asked him how he could expect her to trust him after what had happened. Teo admitted he did not expect immediate forgiveness, that trust must be rebuilt slowly, through consistent action. Mariam considered this carefully. She had been naive before, allowing hope to outweigh caution. This time, she would not be so easily swayed. Over the next few weeks, Mariam tested Teo quietly. She observed his behavior in the market, in the village gatherings, and when he interacted with others. Slowly, she saw small changes. He remained respectful, refrained from unnecessary flirtation, and helped villagers without seeking attention. Mariam began to feel a cautious sense of hope. Yet, she knew that forgiveness was a journey, not a single moment. She decided to focus on herself, to continue building her independence and confidence. Her mother encouraged her daily, proud of the strength Mariam now carried. Then, a new challenge rose. Another trader, one who had been observing Teo's pattern, approached Mariam with warnings. He told her that Teo had a history of deceit in other villages and that his promises were often empty. Mariam felt the old fear return. The villagers listened to the man's words, some nodding in agreement, others skeptical. Mariam realized that the battle was not only against Teo's past actions but also against the perceptions of the community. She had to decide whether to let others' opinions shape her decisions or to trust her own judgment. Mariam chose the path of balance. She acknowledged Teo's past but also gave space for change, believing that actions now would speak louder than rumors. She continued her work in the market, her reputation growing stronger with each day. She learned to speak confidently to villagers who questioned her choices and to assert her independence. Mariam felt a quiet pride in the resilience she had cultivated, a pride that no betrayal could steal. She began to see that life in Kijiji was not only about surviving hardship but also about shaping one's destiny with courage and wisdom. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Mariam found herself walking with Teo again, this time not as a naive lover but as a woman aware of her own worth. They talked openly, honestly, and without pretense. Mariam tested him with questions about loyalty, respect, and responsibility. Teo answered with care, understanding that the trust they were rebuilding was fragile. The village around them seemed quieter, as if holding its breath. Mariam felt a shift within herself. She was no longer merely a girl enchanted by charm. She was a woman learning to navigate love with caution and dignity. Yet, even as hope returned, Mariam sensed a tension in the air. One evening, while closing her stall, she noticed a stranger observing her and Teo from a distance. The stranger's eyes were sharp and calculating. Mariam's pulse quickened. Could Teo's past truly be behind him, or was another test of her resolve about to come? She felt the weight of uncertainty settle over her once more, realizing that the journey of love and trust was never simple. The village night pressed close, full of whispered fears and possibilities. Mariam clenched her fists and vowed silently that she would not be deceived again, no matter the cost. The stranger in the village lingered for days, watching Mariam and Teo from a distance. Mariam sensed his presence immediately. He seemed curious, calculating, as if he was waiting for a moment to reveal some hidden truth. Her heart beat faster whenever she saw him, a mixture of fear and vigilance. She decided to confide in her mother, telling Amina about the man. Her mother frowned, her voice firm. Mariam, trust your instincts. Do not let strangers into your life too easily. We have seen men like Teo. Be careful. Mariam nodded, feeling both the weight of responsibility and the strength she had gained through recent trials. Despite the stranger, Mariam continued to build her life. She expanded her small business, introducing handmade jewelry alongside her baskets and vegetables. Villagers admired her courage and skill, gradually respecting her as a woman of determination rather than just a young girl caught in love's snares. Teo continued to prove himself trustworthy, helping her in subtle ways, offering assistance when asked but never attempting to control her choices. Mariam learned to balance her cautious hope for love with her growing independence, realizing that strength and trust must coexist. One afternoon, as Mariam worked near the river, the stranger approached her directly. He introduced himself as Kendi, a trader from a neighboring settlement. His tone was calm, yet Mariam felt a sharp tension in the air. Kendi spoke of Teo, revealing details of past betrayals, of broken promises in other villages, and of men who used charm as a weapon. Mariam's stomach sank, but she did not respond immediately. Instead, she watched Teo closely over the coming days, testing his consistency and his loyalty. Her heart had grown stronger. She was no longer willing to be manipulated by words alone. Actions would speak louder than any confession or apology. As Mariam observed Teo, she noticed subtle changes. He spoke to villagers with honesty, gave without expectation, and no longer sought admiration or attention. His focus remained on her, but in a way that respected her independence. Mariam felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps some men could change. Perhaps trust could be rebuilt, even after betrayal. Yet the caution she had cultivated prevented her from fully surrendering to optimism. She approached their conversations with questions, scenarios, and boundaries, measuring sincerity in every gesture. Teo accepted this with patience, understanding that love demanded proof, not just promises. Then, one evening, a crisis struck the village. Heavy rains had caused the river to swell, threatening the huts and crops. Mariam and her mother worked alongside other villagers to reinforce the banks and save their possessions. Teo was among them, helping tirelessly without seeking praise. Mariam watched him, realizing that actions, not words, were the measure of character. That night, as they rested near the river, Mariam felt a cautious sense of relief. Teo had shown commitment, courage, and care for the community, not just for her. Perhaps redemption was possible. The following weeks tested Mariam's newfound balance. Kendi returned, observing quietly, occasionally warning her of risks, yet Mariam maintained her distance. She had learned that judgment must be balanced with personal experience. The village had begun to whisper less about her past, seeing her strength and focus. Mariam felt a sense of empowerment that had once seemed impossible. Her life was no longer defined by Teo's betrayal but by her resilience, her skill, and her ability to navigate both love and danger. One evening, as Mariam closed her stall, she noticed Teo waiting. He handed her a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside were tokens from the villages he had visited, simple gifts symbolizing honesty, care, and effort. Mariam felt tears rise but did not let them fall immediately. She knew that love, once betrayed, required patience, boundaries, and observation. She looked at Teo, measuring his gaze, his sincerity, and his commitment. Slowly, she nodded. Perhaps trust could be restored cautiously over time. Life in Kijiji continued. Mariam worked in the fields, sold her goods, and maintained her place in the village. Teo remained by her side, proving himself quietly through actions. The villagers slowly accepted their connection, not as naive romance, but as a partnership built on resilience and respect. Mariam's heart healed gradually, guided by her courage, her mother's wisdom, and her own discernment. She learned that love could be beautiful, but it required vigilance, boundaries, and respect to thrive. Yet, just as Mariam allowed herself a sense of calm, an unexpected event jolted the village. One night, a fire broke out in a neighboring compound, sending smoke and panic through the settlement. Mariam and Teo ran to help, using water from the river to control the flames. In the chaos, Mariam saw Teo act decisively, protecting children, moving quickly to save possessions, showing a bravery that no words could match. The villagers watched in awe, murmuring among themselves. Mariam realized that true character is revealed not in promises but in moments of crisis. That night, she felt an irreversible shift. Trust, cautiously earned, could coexist with love and respect. By morning, the village had calmed. Mariam returned home, exhausted but resolute. She sat with her mother, reflecting on the past months, the betrayal, the pain, the whispers, and the trials. She realized that she had grown stronger, wiser, and more capable than she had ever imagined. Teo knelt beside her, silently acknowledging the journey they had taken together. Mariam allowed a small smile, feeling that perhaps life had finally balanced itself. The man who had once sold love and bought betrayal had been tested, and so had she. What remained was not only love but respect, courage, and the wisdom to navigate the complexities of life in Kijiji. Mariam knew the village would always speak of Teo's past, and she would always remember the pain, but she had learned that a life reclaimed with dignity and strength was worth more than fleeting romance or shallow charm. Together, Mariam and Teo continued, each step measured, each action deliberate, each moment a testament to resilience, trust, and the quiet power of a woman who had survived betrayal and emerged victorious. The night settled over Kijiji, peaceful but alive with the river's song. Mariam gazed at the stars, feeling both sorrow and hope entwined in her heart. She understood that love could bring both beauty and pain. What mattered now was how she moved forward. Teo's presence was no longer a source of fear but a challenge to discern, to trust, and to live fully. And as the wind whispered through the trees, Mariam felt a deep sense of triumph, knowing that betrayal had not broken her but had instead forged a woman capable of facing anything the world could offer. The village slept, unaware of the quiet victories of one young woman who had learned to reclaim love, life, and dignity. Mariam's journey was not over, but she now walked with a strength that no deceit could shake, a courage that no whisper could diminish, and a heart that had learned to measure love with eyes wide open. The stars glimmered, the river flowed, and the village breathed softly in the night. Mariam held the lessons close, knowing that every betrayal had been a teacher, and every moment of courage had been a step toward a life fully her own. She had faced the man who sold love and bought betrayal, and in doing so, she had discovered the power to reclaim herself. The wind carried the faint laughter of children in the distance, a reminder that life, despite pain, always moves forward. Mariam closed her eyes, letting the night wrap around her, and whispered quietly to herself that the future belonged to those who survived, to those who endured, and to those who loved wisely.